It's 2020 and the US has its most important presidential election ever quickly approaching. In fact, there are over 200 million registered voters who are expected to vote this year. The thing is, for the first time in history, most of these votes will be done by mail or early voting and not on election day. So, should you vote by mail or not? And if you do decide to vote by mail, how do you actually know your vote will be counted correctly? In this video, we'll answer those questions in detail, and if you're new to this channel, please subscribe. Plus, at the end of this short video, I will have two special announcements, so please stick around. Before we answer the question, should you vote by mail this year or not, it's important to take a step back and look at how many people actually vote in the US during a given election. Presidential elections always have the highest voter turnout, so let's take a look at the 2016 election. In that election, there were 128,838,731 votes cast for either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. In fact, 3 million more votes went to Hillary. We'll save that explanation for another video. The point is, 128 million is a lot of votes. Currently, there are over 208 million registered voters in the US. At this point, it's worth saying that if you want to check to see if you are registered and what your status is, there are many websites that can help you with that. You can Google your county's Board of Elections or your state voting, or you can also check your status on vote.org, as well as many other nonprofit bipartisan organizations that will help you check to see whether you are registered or not. This next stat I'm about to tell you may surprise you. So, of those 128 million votes in 2016, guess how many were cast before Election Day? It's actually 46 million that were cast in some manner other than traditional polling places on Election Day. That's almost 36% of total votes in the 2016 election. We looked at those numbers in detail and found that 23.3 million of those were absentee ballots, 16.9 were early voting, and 6.3 were mail-in ballots. Now you might ask yourself, what's the difference between absentee ballots and mail-in ballots? And I'm going to answer that in a minute. If you were surprised by that number, tell us in the comments. Honestly, it's much higher than we expected. But we all know 2020 is completely different. We are in the middle of a pandemic. Several states have made drastic changes to their voting rules, and the vast majority allow mail-in voting. So, if we jump from 36% of voting done in advance to, let's say, 80%, what does that actually look like? Here's how it looks. As of September 8th, 2020, here are the latest rules of each state. In these 9 states, plus the District of Columbia, if you are a registered voter, you will get a ballot in the mail, period. In these 36 states, anyone can request an absentee ballot. Now, the difference between absentee and mail-in is more technical. For absentee, you need a valid excuse. But for these 36 states, you can put down COVID as the reason. So basically, every registered voter can request an absentee ballot in these states. In fact, New York and South Carolina in the last few weeks have made the switch to allow everyone to request an absentee ballot. That leaves only 5 states that still have strict absentee voting rules. I'm going to talk about those in more detail in a minute. And actually, courts are currently challenging some of these rules for these 5 states as we speak. Okay, so if you're watching this video, the likelihood is high that you're in one of these states and you want to understand what you should know and what you need to do in order to have your vote counted this fall. And I just want to say, no pressure, it's just the future of the US riding on this election, whatever side of the aisle you're on. Let's say you're in one of these 9 states and DC that will mail you a ballot if you're registered. All you need to do is make sure you're registered and that you're registered with your correct address. For example, last week in California, the state sent out a heads-up letter to all registered voters telling them that they should expect a ballot by mail starting early October. Now, when these ballots arrive in early October or around that time period for other states, go ahead and fill it out early. Then you'll have a few options. You can return it by mail, return it at a drop box near you, which every state will have, or return it to your regular polling place. To prevent duplicate voting, first, if you decide you need or want to vote in person on Election Day, you will need to bring your mail-in ballot with you and turn it in. If you don't, your ballot will be marked provisional. That means that your vote won't count until they can verify that you also did not vote by mail. Basically, they'll wait until they count all the mail-in ballots to then approve your in-person vote. Now, before we jump to other states, you might be asking, but wait, what if the voter rolls are wrong in the first place? Let's talk about some of these conspiracy theories for a minute, and at the end of this video, you'll have a chance to weigh in, so stay tuned. Based on past data and nonpartisan organizations, the fact is voting fraud is not a problem, non-citizens are not voting in droves, and ballot abuse is not happening. Again, many respected bipartisan organizations have reported and shared this type of data. But stay tuned, we're going to loop back to this because I know it's controversial. So here are the 36 states where you need to take action to request an absentee ballot. Some of these states make it easy, like they have functioning websites and request forms, and some make it difficult, like you have to print out a form and then mail it in. And that leaves us with 5 holdout states where at this point you need an excuse that's not COVID-19 to request an absentee ballot. However, 3 of these states actually do have early voting: Texas, Louisiana, and Tennessee. So that leaves just Indiana and Mississippi without good options prior to Election Day. So if you're in one of these 41 states and want links to the latest information, go to trackyourballot.org, where we'll point you to the latest links on how to request a mail-in ballot and also track your ballot. But actually, even if you don't plan on getting an absentee ballot, or if you're in one of the 9 states where you'll get the ballot automatically, you should still go to trackyourballot.org, because in a week, we'll start to show real-time polling results for you, and it's free when you click the link in the description. But I want to leave you with this important image. Let's say 200 million registered voters all decided to go to polling places on Election Day. And of course, socially distance and stand 6 feet apart. That line would stretch from Los Angeles to New York City and back 50 times. Put another way, that line would be over 265,000 miles, and actually only takes 238,000 miles to get to the moon. Now, obviously that really doesn't matter because there are tens of thousands of polling places around the US, so your line would indeed be slightly shorter than that. The point is that the overwhelming trend over these past several elections has been early or absentee voting. And this year, we've been catapulted into a new voting reality with the most consequential election of our lifetimes. So of course there is stress and anxiety about this. Now we want to hear from you. As promised at the beginning of this video, we will be covering every important evolution of voting from now until the election, and we'll be releasing more videos. In our next video, we'll be sharing 5 of the most liked comments from this video. So please leave a comment, especially if you have a strong opinion or information that is important for this discussion on whether you should vote in person or not. We've just spent 10 minutes talking about vote by mail and some of the pros and cons of doing it, but the most important thing is what happens in reality. What are you thinking about doing? Are you going to vote by mail or in person? And what state are you in? Please share in the comments. We'll also give shoutouts to the states that get the most mentions. But before you like and leave a comment, hit the subscribe button so you get an alert when we post our next video. And as always, until next time, thank you so much for watching. It means so much to us. Stay well and stay healthy.